everyone, I'm Oath, tied in the United States. Today I would like to show you the website which I am using is for my reading recently. This one, AmericanLiterature.com, is contains good stories, 100 great short stories, but when I pick the story to read, I just pick them as random. Anyway, if you're interested to read stories from this one, just go ahead. And today, my reading, I gonna pick one. What about, okay, I like the Furnished Room. Let's see, what is it gonna be? A little bit long for me, but not bad because I read for 4 pages before, or more than that pages. I don't remember. Anyway, start this one. The Furnished Room by O. Henry. The Furnished Room was published in O. Henry's collections. The 4 million, 1906, featured in our collections of Halloween stories. Let's shifting funguses as time itself is a certain vast block of the populations of the red brick district of the Lower West Side. Homeless, they have 100 homes. They filled from furnished room to furnished room, transient forever, transient in abode, transient in heart and mind. They sing Home Sweet Home in ragtime. They carry their latest pennies in a bandbox. The wine is entwined about a picture hat. A rubber plant is their fig tree. Hence the houses of this district, having had 1,000 dwellers, should have 1,000 tales to tell. Mostly new ones, no doubt, but it would be strange if there could not be found a ghost or two in the wake of all these grand gates. One evening after dark, a young man prowled among these crumbling red mansions, ringing their bells. At the 12th, he rested his limp hand baggage upon the step and wiped the dust from his headband and forehead. The bell sounded faint and far away in some remote, hollow depths. To the door of this, the 12th house whose bell he had rung, came a housekeeper, who made him think of an unwholesome, surfeited warmth that had eaten its nut to hollow child, and now sought to fill the vacancy with edible lodgers. He asked if there was a room to let. "Come in," said the housekeeper. Her voice came from her throat. Her throat seemed lined with fur. "I have the third floor back, vacant since a week back. Should you wish to look at it?" The young man followed her up the stairs. A faint light loomed. No particular source mitigated the shadows of the house. They trod noiselessly upon a stairs carpet that its own room would have forsworn. It seemed to have become vegetable, to have degenerated in that rank, sunless air too large, children, or spreading moss that grew in patches to the staircase and was visited under the foot like organic matter. At each turn of the stairs were vacant niches in the wall. Perhaps plants had once been set within them. If so, they had died in that foul and tainted air. It may be that statues of the saints had stood there, but it was not difficult to conceive that imps and devils had dragged them forth in the darkness and down to the unholy depths of some furnished pit below. "That is the room," said the housekeeper from her favorite thoughts. "It's a nice room. It's an often vacant. I had some most elegant people in it last summer. No trouble at all, and paid in advance to the minute. The waters at the ends of the house sprouts as Mooney kept in 3 months. They done a wonderful sketch. Miss B. Retta Sprouse. You may have heard of her. Oh, that was just the stage names. Right there over the dressers is where the marriage certificate hung, framed. The gas is here, and you see there is plenty of closet room. It's a room everybody likes. It never stays idle long." "Do you have many theatrical people rooming here?" asked the young man. "There comes and goes. A good proportion of my lodger is connected with the theaters. Yes, sir. This is the theatrical district. Actor people never stay long anywhere. I get my chair. Yes, there comes and there goes." He engaged the room, paying for a week in advance. He was tired, he said, and would take possession at once. He counted out the money. The room had been made ready, she said, even the towels and water. As the housekeeper moved away, he put, for the 1000th time, the question that he carried at the end of his tongue. "A young girl, Miss Wagner, Miss Esther Wagner. Do you remember such a one among your lodgers? She would be singing on the stage, most likely, a fair girl of medium height and slender, with reddish gold hair and a dark mole near her left eyebrow." "No, I don't remember the name. Them stage people has names they change as often their rooms. They comes and they goes. No, I don't call that one to mind. No, always no. 5 months of ceaseless interrogations and the inevitable negative. So much time spent by day in questioning managers, agents, schools, and choruses, by night among the audiences of theaters, from all-star casts down to music halls, so low that he dreaded to find what he must hope for. He who had loved her best had tried to find her. He was sure that since her disappearance from home this great water girl city held her somewhere. But it felt like a monstrous quicksand, shifting its particles constantly, with no foundations, its upper granules of today buried tomorrow in earth and slime. The furnished room received its latest guest with a first growth of personal hospitality, a hectic, haggard, perfunctory welcome like the spacious smiles of a demiurge. The sophistical comfort came in reflected glimpses from the decayed furniture, the ragged brocade upholsteries of a couch and 2 chairs, a foot wide cheap pier glass between the 2 windows, from 1 or 2 gilt picture frames and a brass bedstead in the corner. The guest reclined, inert, upon a chair while the room, confused in speech as though it were an apartment in Babel, tried to discuss to him of its driver's tenantry. A polychromatic rug, like some brilliant flower rectangular, tropical islets lay surrounded by a billowy sea of solid matting. Upon the gay papered wall were those pictures that pursue the homeless ones from house to house. The Huguenot lovers, the first quarrel, the wedding breakfast, such as the fountain, The mantel's casually silver outline was incongruously veiled behind some pert drapery drawn regularly askew like the sashes of Amazonian barley. Upon it was some desolate frostum cast aside by the rooms marooned when a lucky sail had borne them to a fresh port. A trifling vase or two, pictures of actresses, and medicine bottles, some stray cards out of a deck. One by one, as the characters of cytographs become explicit, the little signs left by the furnished room's possession of guests develop a significance. The threadbare space in the rack in front of the dresser told that lovely woman had marched in the trunk. Tiny fingerprints on the wall spoke of little prisoner trying to feel their way to sun and air. A splatter stained, raying like the shadows of bursting bombs, witnessed where a whole glass of bottle had splintered with its contents against the wall. Across the pier glass had been scrawled with a diamond in staggering letters the name Marie. It seemed that the succession of dwellers in the furnished room had turned in furies, perhaps tempted beyond forbearance by its garnished cornets, and break upon its departure. The furniture was chipped and bruised. The couch, distorted by bursting springs, seemed a horrible monster that had been slain during the stress of some grotesque convulsions. Some more potent and herald had cloven a great slice from the marble mantel. Each plank in the floor on its particular cant and shrieked as from a separate and individual agony. It seemed incredible that all these malice and injury had been wrought upon the room by those who had called it for a time their home, and yet it may have been the cheated home instinct surviving blindly, the sinful rage at false household gods that had kindled their wrath. A heart that is our own we can sweep and adorn and cherish. The young tenant in the chair allowed these thoughts to fall short through his mind, while there drifted into the room furnished sounds and furnished scents. He heard in one room a tittering and incontinent, slack laughter in answer the monologue of scold, the rattling of dice, a ruby, and once crying dully above him and banjo tinkled with spirit. Doors banged somewhere. The elevated trains roared intermittently. A cat yowled miserably upon a back fence, and he breathed the breath of the house, a dank sulphur rather than a smell, a cold, musty effluent as from underground walls mingled with the reeking exhalations of linoleum and minute and rotten woodwork. Then suddenly, as he rested there, the room was filled with the strong, sweet odor of mignonette. It came as upon a single buffet of wind with such sureness and fragrance and emphasis that it almost seemed a living visitant. And the man cried aloud, "What dear!" as if he had been called, and sprang up and faced about. The rich odor clung to him and wrapped him around. He reached out his arms for it. All his senses for the time confused and commingled. How could one be peremptorily called back an odor? Surely it must have been a sound. But what is not the sound that had touched, that had catches him. "She has been in this room," he cried, and she sprang to rest from its tokens, for he knew he would recognize a smaller thing that had belonged to her or that she had touched. This enveloping sense of mignonette, the odor that she had loved and made her own, whence came it? The room had been but carelessly set in order. Scattered upon the flimsy dresser's scarf were half a dozen hairpins, those discreet, indistinguishable friends of womankind, feminine of gender, infinite of mood, and uncommunicative of tense. These he ignored, conscious of their triumphant lack of identity. Ransacking the drawer of the dresser, he came upon a discarded, tiny rag handkerchief. He pressed it to his face. It was racist and insolent with heliotrope. He hurled it to the floor. In another drawer he found old buttons, a theater program, and pawnbroker's card, 2 lost marshmallows, a book on the divinations of dreams. In the last was a woman's black thin hair bow, which haunted him, poised between ice and fire. But the black stained hair bow also is feminity's demon, impersonal, common ornament, and tells no tales. And then he traversed the room like a hound on the scent, skimming the walls, considering the corners of the blocking matting on his hands and knees, rummaging mantel and tables, the curtains and hangs, the drunken cabinet in the corner, for a visible sign, unable to perceive that she was there beside, around, against, within, above him, clinging to him, wooing him, calling him so poignantly through the finer senses that even his grosser ones became cognizant of the call. Once again he answered loudly, "Yes, dear," and turned wide-eyed to gaze on vacancy, for he could not yet discern form and color and love and outstretched arms in the order of mignonette. O God, whence that odor? And sin when have odors had a voice to call? That he groped. He burrowed in crevices and corners, and found corks and cigarettes. These he passed in passive contempt, but once he found in a fold of the matting a half-smoked cigar, and this he ground beneath his heel with a green and trenchant oath. He sifted the room from end to end. He found dreary and ignoble small records of many peripatetic tenants, but of her whom he sought, and who may have lodged there, and whose spirit seemed to hover there, he found no trace. And then he thought of the housekeeper. He ran from the haunted room downstairs and to a door that showed a crack of light. She came out to his knock. He smothered his excitement as best he could. "Will you tell me, madam," he besought her, "who occupied the room I have before I came?" "Yes, sir, I can tell you again. Towards Sprouse and Mooney's, as I said. Miss Beretta Sprouse is one in the theaters, but Mrs. Mooney, she was. My house is well known for respectability. The marriage certificate hung framed on a nail over." "What kind of a lady was Miss Sprouse? In looks, I mean." "Why, black hair, sir, short and slouch. This a comical face. They left a week ago, Tuesday. And before they occupied it, why, there was a single gentleman connected with the drying business. He left owing me a week. Before him was Mrs. Crowder and her two children. That stayed for months, and back of them was old Mr. Dole, whose sons paid for him. He kept the room 6 months. That goes back a year, sir, and further I do not remember. He thanked her and crept back to his room. The essence that had vivified it was gone. The perfume of mignonette had departed. In its place was the old, stale odor of mouldy house furniture, of atmosphere in storage. The ebbing of his hope drained his faith. He sat staring at the yellow, singing gaslight. Soon he walked to the bed and began to tear the sheets into strips. With the blade of his knife, he drove them tightly into every crevice around windows and door. When all was snug and taut, he turned out the light, turned the gas full on again, and laid himself gracefully upon the bed. It was Mrs. McCall's night to go with a can for beer, so she fetched it and sat with Mrs. Purdy in one of those subterranean retreats where housekeepers forgather, and the warm death seldom. I rented out my third floor back this evening, said Mrs. Purdy across a fine circle of foam. A young man took it. He went up to bed for 2 hours ago. Now, did ye, Mr. Purdy, ma'am? Said Mrs. McCall, with intense admiration. You do be a wonder for renting rooms of that kind. And did ye tell him then? She concluded in a husky whisper, laden with mystery. Rooms, said Mrs. Purdy, in her furious tones, and furnished for to rent. I did not tell him, Mrs. McCall. 'Tis right ye are, ma'am. It's by renting rooms we keep alive. Ye have the rare sense of business, ma'am. There be many people will refuse the renting of a room if they be told a saucer has been after dying in the best of it. As you say, we has our living to be making, remarked Miss Purdy. Yes, ma'am, it's true. There's just 1 week ago, this day I helped yearly out the third floor back. A pretty slip of a colleen she was to be killing herself with the gas, a sweat little face she had. Mrs. Purdy, ma'am, she's been called handsome, as you say, said Mrs. Purdy, assenting but critical. But for that mole she had a groaning by her left eyebrow. Do fill up your glass again, Mrs. McCall. And that's it. I found that many wordings I have never known before, and I just guessed about reading them, pronunciation them. Anyway, it's fun story, and it is like a man have seen ladies goats who killing herself in the room and seem like she is his lover because he came to the room and found out she was killing herself in this room, and then he is going to killing himself the same way by the gas because he turned on the gas. And the last thing is with the conversation, the speech of the character in the story that is hard to read them. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. Bye.